Hi everyone, it's West Coast Trial Lawyers and West Coast Employment Lawyers here. It's me, Alvaro, and Ron, our weekly Facebook Live. I want to wish everyone a happy New Year. I hope everyone is healthy, and this is a very prosperous year for everyone, drivers or anybody else who is listening to this weekly Facebook Live. Before we get to substantive issues and questions and answers, I want to remind you that today is our giveaway of $500. Perry will draw a name at the end of the broadcast, and then we will pick a winner and reward someone $500 cash. With that said, I want to get to the questions right away. Tess is asking Ron, what is the ABC test and is it in effect now? I know you have explained it before, but for those who weren't paying attention or some new listeners, please
Sure.
tell us.
So the ABC test is the test that all employers or companies have to meet in order to properly classify workers as independent contractors. So A has to do with control. How much control does the company have over the worker? B has to do with whether or not what the worker is doing is part of the company's usual business and operations, and C has to do whether the worker typically does this thing on an independent basis. The ABC test comes from a case that brought it from other parts of the country, actually. What's in effect starting this year is a statute, I believe it's 2750.3 under the Labor Code, where the ABC test is put in the books, and there are a bunch of exemptions, of which a lot of the gig economy is not a part of, and that is what's in effect right now. So the ABC test has existed before, but what has it kicked in is that it has been put in the Labor Code. And that is it.
Okay, thank you, Ron. Marcus is asking really good question because it's as recent as a couple of days ago. I think it was dated. It was dated December 31st. Uber came out with a new term of the agreement in which it's notifying its drivers and that changing coverages in their while the drivers are logged into the app. We know previously that Uber had three phases of coverages: phase one, phase two, phase three. Phase one applies when your app is on, but you haven't locked in a ride yet. Phase two applies when you have locked in a ride and you're en route to get the passenger. And then phase three is when the passenger gets into your vehicle. With the new Uber's new terms of the insurance policies, I don't see any changes between phase one and phase three, but there is a change, dramatic change in phase two, when you have locked in a ride and you're on your way to go get a passenger. The change that we see in Uber's coverage is that Uber has reduced its uninsured motorist coverage from $1 million to just $50,000 for period two. Marcus is asking. I think Marcus is misinformed. He's saying I think it's saying that their insurance now covers whenever you're logged into the app and no longer only when en route to pick up or driving a passenger. That's not true. Their insurance always covered when your app was on. It's just there are different coverages that apply. So these new terms do not change period one and three. It only changes period two dramatically by reducing the uninsured motorist coverage from $1 million to just $50,000. So this brings up a related point that Albert always mentions is that that's why it's very important that if you can afford it, you should purchase additional coverage through your own personal insurance. It's called a rider coverage that allows you to have coverage for using your vehicle for business purposes like driving for Uber or Lyft. Any comments on these new terms?
I mean, they went from $1 million to 50,000. That should tell drivers that these companies don't want the best thing for us. I mean, and another thing I was gonna tell you is that I was gonna ask you is that a lot of freelancers, the dancers, like those graphic design people, they're all really mad because of AB5. My question is, can they create like a DBA, like an LLC, like an S corporation, and they can still be independent contractors and do what they're doing, or AB5 force them to become employees, or how they can figure that out? Because I feel like these people, like for example, there was this guy. He's like, oh, I used to make $100 an hour. Right now with the AB5, I'm not gonna be an employee, and they're gonna pay me only $15. I feel like I see a problem with the rideshare industry. I see the problem, and this is why I supported AB5. But if AB5 is gonna try to solve a problem where there is no problem, I don't agree with that. You know what I mean? So how can they? I mean, I don't know if you know the answer for the question, how they can fix that and how they can go around. I know a lot of people got exemptions, like doctors, lawyers. Can they still get an exemption, or it's too late now?
So to get an exemption, you'd have to go through the legislative process. It would take a long time. It's not impossible to amend the law to include more exemptions. As far as people that have been, because I read the news stories that there were a lot of separations of employment and contractors leading up to the end of the year. In order to, the best way to be an independent contractor is to make sure that the company you work for treats you in a way that is truly independent. So yes, if you become a sole proprietor, you get an employer identification number, you register as an S corp, or you could get a fictitious business name, right? Alvaro doing business as greatdriver.com, whatever. These are things that would help the company have less fear about violating AB5. Of course, there's a point where if you're working full time for one place and you're 1099, you're just violating the law. You're supposed to be paid payroll taxes. You're just violating the law. You're supposed to be workers' comp insurance, all that stuff. But if you're doing temporary work, like 3 weeks here, 2 months there, there's an actual contract. This is temporary. You can work for anyone else that you're here with. Then that's okay, because then that means you're independent. I'm going to be here for a little bit. I'm going to be there for a little bit. I'm going to have 2 jobs at the same time. So it just depends on the amount of control that the company wants to exert over the worker. If they're like, listen, we're going to contract you, but you could only work for us, and we tell you how to do your job, and we tell you when to do this, and and if you don't do it that way, you get none of the payments. Well, then you're really an employee, and you're being screwed. See, this is about not getting screwed as a worker. This is about, hey, if you're going to make so much money off of me, you're not giving me $100 an hour because you're being nice. You give me $100 an hour because you would have to be paying more to someone else.
That's how I see it.
That's really what's happening. And on top of that, you have to pay payroll taxes. You have to apply to my EDD account, so that if I lose my job, if you don't want to contract me anymore, I have unemployment insurance. Or if I'm too sick to work, I have disability insurance. 1099 folks don't have that. If you have, for God forbid, if you don't have insurance and you get sick, you can't apply to EDD to disability. You're done, right? And every single independent contractor is like that. What AB5 is there to, it's there to help society as a whole for people like that, where there are companies that take advantage of the system to treat people really treat them like employees, but do nothing that is required of them, that we as a society have said, listen, you need to give back a little bit just in case these employees get screwed.
Because this is the part I don't understand. So I was talking to this lady. I mean, I saw her post in a different group. She's like, I'm moving to, I think, Illinois with my company because I had 30 independent contractors and they were making bank. And now, because of AB5, I can now hire them as independent contractor. I will have to hire them as an employee. And this is going to ruin my company. So I'm moving my company out of California. I mean, if she's paying them good money, can she adjust the cost of expenses, a company has to make them, everybody happy? I just don't understand why people see everything so negative and they rather leave than trying to fix a problem. You know what I mean? So I don't understand.
There's a lot of short-term thinking. A lot of people that make money as incorrectly as independent contractors think that if they're new to it, they don't think they have to pay taxes on a 1099, and they get a $20,000 tax bill next year. they get sick and they don't have any insurance, and all of a sudden, when they should have had some type of workers' comp insurance or disability insurance, that's not there. So the reason companies don't adjust is, one, they don't want to dip into their profits, right? Just like Uber is. And two, they don't see the societal benefit in changing, and the individual benefit for changing, right? You look at your paycheck, or I look at my paycheck. There's some deductions there, right? And that's like, wow, if I didn't have those deductions, I'd have put more in to pay off my own debts or whatever. But I know that is being taken off is for my benefit if I get sick, or if I get unemployed, or if my wife needs money, or you know what I mean. So, but these are things people can't see right away. So there's this thing, well, if I don't see it right away, I don't need it. And if I don't need it, then you're taking it from me. And if you're taking it from me, you're stealing from me, and you shouldn't be stealing from me.
Because I was reading Lorena Gonzalez, she wrote something that says that a lot of truck drivers, the trucking companies, the big truck drivers, they're all against AB5. Not all of them, like half of them are against AB5. And Lorena was writing that they said that the state actually had to pay so much money into the unemployment, into medical. So what you're saying is that if you don't have a medical insurance and you don't have no money there, the state has to pay that money, because that your employer is getting all the profit and saving the money, that's supposed to pay you for your medical and your other things that you rely on the state. And this is why AB5 became a law, because there was a problem that the state was looking at this independent contractor, But I don't know if we wanted to go with we got stuck on the AB5.
Well, it is. It's the most relevant issue facing the Uber and Lyft drivers, so I don't mind spending a lot of time on it. But let's move on to the next question, which is not AB5 related, and I'll answer it. Rebecca is asking, have you ever won a hit-and-run case when you don't initially have the name of the driver or their insurance? Yes, this is very common. If you're involved in a hit-and-run accident, all you have to do is just make a police report. If the police don't come, you go to the police station, make the report, and have your attorney handle it. If you have uninsured motorist coverage, that will come into play and will trigger your uninsured motorist coverage. Sometimes then you discover that, during investigation, we find out the identity of the at-fault party, third party. When that happens, we open a claim against them, and we resolve the claim through that party's insurance. But yes, it is very common for us to obtain settlements in hit-and-run cases, especially when our clients have the uninsured motorist coverage, which is always the most important coverage you should have, and you should buy as high of a coverage as you can afford.
Can I ask a nerd legal question?
Sure.
Because hit-and-runs are a crime, right?
Correct.
Is there issues with insurance coverage because the driver was committing a crime or had committed a crime?
No, it's not. Because your uninsured motorist coverage is strictly, there is no exclusion for other people's illegal activities, because it triggers only if they don't have insurance. That's it.
Well, that's good.
The other person's insurance may deny coverage because they were involved in a criminal activity. They say, no, we're not going to cover someone going crazy and trying to kill people with their car. But your uninsured motorist coverage is strictly based on, does the other person has coverage or not?
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Great question, actually. Sergio is asking, when getting in an accident, if the driver asks for your insurance, should you not give it to them, since you guys mentioned to not call your insurance and let them know, or is it inevitable? Good question. Not calling your insurance or reporting a claim, it's different than being required to exchange information if you're involved in an accident. The California law requires you to exchange your driver's license information, your insurance information, your registration with the other driver before leaving the scene of an accident. If you don't, then you're running the risk of being charged with a hit-and-run crime, that you basically fled the scene of the accident without providing contact information and insurance information. So, yes, it's serious. So I would always recommend to exchange information. It should be mutual exchange. And then contacting an attorney so that an attorney can make the claims on your behalf, so that you don't do anything to jeopardize your claim. That's a great question, actually. Here's an AB5 question for you, Ron. Abraham is asking, AB5 is now in effect. Is it too late to join a group or union to stand up for what we deserve as employees?
So it depends. So you can only join a union if the company has recognized the workers as employees. So Uber and Lyft have not done that yet, so there is no union to join. But you can join a lawsuit or class action. Our firm has filed a class action against Uber under this new law that took effect. So the website to see if you qualify and eligible is enforceab5.com. So go there and fill out our questionnaire. We'll be happy to review it and give you a call or email back. But right now, if your company or the worker, if the company you're working at does not recognize you as an employee or your class of workers as employees, you cannot form a union. So the only other thing you should do if you believe your rights are being violated under AB5 is to call an attorney and see if you can maybe have your own claim as an individual who was misclassified, or you could start your own claim either under a class action or a representative basis under California law.
We have a website. It's called enforceab5.com. If you go on there, there's a questionnaire. You can submit answers to the questionnaires. We'll get that information, and someone will contact you from our firm to see if you qualify to become part of the class action lawsuit that we have filed against Uber. Carlos is asking, I'm a part-time driver that does this to cover the rest of my bills. With AB5 passing, does that hurt or help me more? What do you think, Alvaro?
Well, it's gonna help him more.
For the part-time drivers, right?
Yeah, because I mean, here is the thing that we still don't know how Lyft. It's so funny how all these companies, for example, the scooters, Lime scooters, they just terminate all their independent contractors agreement. Because they used to, the scooters.
Yeah.
They used to get paid to charge each scooter like $5. So that company canceled all their agreements on. Pretty much they fire everybody and they only gonna hire a full-timer to charge their scooter. So every company are moving and are adjusting their business. Lyft and Uber, they don't use really much. They're like, I see like so many companies going nuts and trying to figure something out and fix to comply with the law.
Sure.
Lyft and Uber, they pretty much like they don't care, we don't care. I just don't understand,
That brings us to the last AB5 question. Javier is asking, so are we now employees? Well, that's the $1 million question, right?
Right.
Uber and Lyft are saying, no, you're not an employee because under AB5, we are correctly classifying you as independent contractors. And all the lawsuits that have been filed or will be filed, it's going to test that legal argument.
Okay, so
That's basically it. Yeah.
that's what I was gonna ask you, because Lyft and Uber, they're suing the state now in the federal court, wherever, they're suing them because they saying that AB5 is unconstitutional. So I don't understand, because the judge actually, remember when the Dynamite passed, like in 2018, I think it was,
Yes,
or 2017, 2018. So the judge said something is wrong with this. So now Lyft and Uber are suing the state because of AB5. I just don't understand how they can do that if it's obviously that they're breaking the law.
So I have not heard about that, but a good legal argument would be there's a part of the U.S. Constitution, and I believe the California Constitution, basically says you can't take someone's property. You, the government, can't take my property or do something that would cost me a loss of my property without at least due process, and also you compensating me for it. So I imagine that they're making the argument, and again, I'm speculating, but I would make the argument that, hey, this law is actually taking my property indirectly, and that you, the government, should stop doing that. That's a violation of the Constitution. So that's where I believe that's coming from. So let me read this right into the Uber money. Is unconstitutional. See, look at that. My guess was right.
Yeah. But while they're saying that if Dynamics, the judge said that Dynamics was created because they saw that there was a problem with independent contractor, that they were misclassified independent contractors. So
It's a novel legal argument in order to do whatever they can to avoid what everyone, I believe, and they themselves believe is going to happen, which is they can't meet the ABC test if they're really put to the test. Not to use the pun, but once they're now that it's happening, they have to. And now that the law has finally come into existence, because they couldn't do this prior to the beginning of the year. Now that it comes into existence, now they can challenge it. All these things we could challenge it, and we could say it's a violation. So they are doing everything they can to try to keep the status quo, which is, within their right to do. But I don't think it's going to be successful.
So what they're trying to do is just gaming more time, huh? That's what they're actually doing.
No, I believe what they're trying to do is to reframe the question. Instead of saying, hey, the law is the ABC test and whether or not we are correctly applying that is, whoa. The ABC test to begin with shouldn't be applied to us because if you do, you are violating our constitutional rights. So they're just reframing it. They're just spinning it another way. That's all they're doing.
But
it's clever.
But do you think they have a chance to win that?
I don't, because it's hard to really say that you don't have due process when it's the amount of legislative history that required for AB5 to go forward. So I don't think it's going to be that has that good of a chance, but they gave themselves a chance.
Because to be honest, if I'm the judge, I'll be like, look, every company out there, they're trying to figure it out how they're gonna comply with AB5. They're trying to to hire employees. They're trying to move all their pieces. Uber is suing the state. It's like, okay,
because they have the most to lose.
They have the most to lose, and it's a good novel argument, and they put it out there. And now it's not a great chance, but it's a chance. It's a chance.
I'm going to answer one last question from Tiffany, and then we're going to move to a draw for the monthly winner. Oh, let's answer Karkaman's question. I drive 2 hours every day. AB5 apply for me too. Yes, AB5 does not distinguish between part-time or full-time drivers. If your misclassification has nothing to do with how many hours you drive or how many hours you work in any place.
So let's say that we become employees. We form our own union. Mm-hmm. Can we write on the contract who's going to be considered a part-timer and who's going to be considered a full-timer?
That would be part of the negotiation.
Yeah,
oh, okay.
It's part of the deal. Yeah.
So that then we're going to see if that...
So Tiffany's asking, when is it too late to call an attorney? It's never too late to call an attorney. You're ever. So you should always call an attorney, even if you think it's too late, because you don't really know the law. You don't know how good of a case you have. However, the later you call an attorney, more likely that you have already hurt your case because you have done things on your own, and you're not experienced or you're not trained in negotiating or processing claims to handle things on your own. So in whatever position you have, in whatever issue you have, even if you have an attorney, if you want to get a second opinion, it's not too late to call another attorney if you're unhappy with your current attorney for any reason, either they're unresponsive or they think they're mishandling your case. It's always to get. Bottom line is it's always there's no downside in getting free advice. So
to supplement, there's also a deadline to enforce your rights. So if you call past certain deadlines, depending on who the defendant is, even if you call an attorney after the fact, it would be too late. So the sooner you call, the better. There's no reason to delay. The worst that's going to happen is you're told, they can't help you, but at least you find out.
I guess, my point is don't make the determination yourself.
Right.
Or the statute of limitations has passed. It's 2 years later now. I can't sue anyone. Call an attorney. Let them make the determination. So at least you have a peace of mind that you sought free expert advice. Perry, it's that time. Let's see who the lucky $500 winner is.
Everyone loves the $500.
Those Disney
Everyone
tickets
loves
were
free.
cool.
Yeah, the Disney one was cool.
That was great.
She loved that. Okay, guys, here we go. Takes a minute. And our winner is Adam Lupercio. Okay, he's been watching since day one. So congratulations, Adam.
Good job, Adam.
Yeah. So we'll get in contact, and then you can come meet all of our attorneys, and you can claim your prize.
With that, guys, we're going to conclude today's Facebook Live. Again, I wish everyone a happy New Year, healthy New Year, prosperous New Year. Hopefully, this AB5 issue will get resolved and we'll get more clarity, and then it will benefit everyone involved. Please be safe out there. Until then,
Happy New Year, guys. Bye.
Bye.